Welcome to the Coaching Life Podcast. My name's Pat Martin. For those out there that don't know me, Coach Huffman, we're busy right now. Just got a text from Coach Huffman.
You seeing that come in on my phone over there? using a phone and an iPad for our video recording,
Yeah.
and you get all my messages over there. Well,
Yeah.
just make sure you relay them to me. The one day my wife called and you're like, we got to halt things here. Remember that? That was our cut short episode
You did
a
it.
couple times ago. Yeah,
It was under protest that we continued there.
and I was correct. I when I talked to her later, I said, hey, I called her right back as soon as we were done that day, which was only like 15 minutes later. I said, hey, you called right when Pat and I were podcasting. She goes, oh, I'm sorry. So, and I said, well, Pat got nervous because he thought maybe I really needed to call you back. She goes, it wasn't an emergency or anything. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, good.
Yeah, I guess so. It was good.
How you doing,
Cool.
Coach? Coach Chris Stewart.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Good to see you back
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
studio here.
Yeah, you know, we probably, now that we have our weekly date on for the fall semester, you and I kind of think through as in semesters because of where we work, and, you know, we also coach high school ball, which is a semester thing. You guys on semesters? You do
Yes.
semesters? Yeah.
I think.
So, or quarters? I don't know how. Anyway.
Can't remember.
Yeah. Our new
No,
fall
we are.
season.
We would be, let's see. So we'll go quarters. We're in quarters.
Yeah.
Because we have one in the middle of football, one in the middle of basketball.
Well, that's probably the way our high school is too. I'm
Yeah,
guessing that's
one start
Yeah.
at the beginning of baseball,
Yeah.
and then
So like you got two quarters that create probably a semester feel to it as well. Even though that you're not
Honestly.
graded on a semester level, you kind of feel like, hey, that couple of weeks after Christmas is
it's
the end
the
of semester.
that winter,
Yeah.
the winter and fall quarters probably
And
come together this semester.
our podcast is kind of on semesters. Somebody asked me one time, how do you guys get like 9 seasons? Like how do you determine your seasons? And
How do we have the same number of episodes in each season?
no.
Is it relative? Is it
No,
even
but it's close. It is close.
That's
yeah,
good.
Yeah, because
That's good.
well, if you think about it, we go pretty strong in the fall and early spring, fall and winter.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of I think over the past, you know, how long have we been doing this? 4 years now, almost. It's going to be 4 years, or it has. Was it?
Might be 5?
Wow, that's
5?
crazy. 2019.
We did it for a year before
Man,
COVID.
yeah. So for the past couple of years, we've made our, you know, like our season shifts. Like we'll change up the music, you know, a little bit in the intro and do something different.
You say we as being a great teammate, but really,
Well,
it's
our
you.
producer takes care of that.
That's why I'm never first in the
Yeah, right.
in the title.
Yeah. So, but no, I mean, if you think about it, we have a fall season and a winter season, like a August. So we're about to begin season 2.
We would have a spring season.
We're about to begin season
if it
2.
wasn't for me.
Yeah,
it's my fault. We
Spring
don't have.
every now and then, you know, like we'll do some popcorn. We'll call them bonus episodes in the spring and summer.
Yeah.
Like this is a bonus episode. How's that sound?
We could
It's
do
getting
that.
us
Like we
ready
could
for
start
the
doing
fall.
a season a year, just like like the major sitcoms and stuff. You know, they'll go.
Yeah.
Do they normally go fall and winter?
It just depends. Do they still do it? I mean, do you even have it anymore? Everything now, all the seasons now are on. You can watch all episodes.
They get all released
in
on one
night
day
if you want to. Yeah.
Although I heard
But-
Cobra Kai is not like that this time.
You have to wait. You get half of it.
They
and
haven't
then-
really. Yeah,
That's what they did
really
with
saw.
Ozark.
Never watched Ozark. I didn't watch the last season
Pretty
of
quality.
Cobra Kai.
Me either. I think I've only watched. How many is there? I watched 3 maybe.
I think this is the 5th season. Yeah, and I think I watched 3.
Maybe I didn't finish the 3rd one.
Yeah.
And I didn't even start the 4th one. I don't know. I mean, it was great when it was great for me as an 80s person. And you know, maybe, I don't know. Did you like it? Did you? Were you an original Karate Kid fan?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, right. You know what I watched the other day?
Weird Science.
Did we
Did I
talk
guess
about
right?
this?
Did I guess right?
No, but it's very close because
Was Kelly LeBrock in it?
no.
Okay.
I started to watch Weird Science, but I didn't get through it because I had to leave. But the producer Do you know who produces it?
Oh goodness, no.
I think it's like John Hughes or something like that.
Okay.
Actually produces the movie that I watched also.
Breakfast Club.
That's it.
Yeah.
You got that one.
Well, you know, those are the top two in my list of
Really?
80s films that I've probably watched more than any other.
Oh man.
But those two.
It just seems like like
Emilio
Jake and Maya
Estevez,
watching it. This is boring.
That cast in Breakfast Club is
Top notch.
really good. And what's his name? Anthony Michael Hall. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Wait,
Anthony Michael. Anthony.
To the
The blonde-haired kid, the nerd in Breakfast Club. Well, he's a nerd in Weird Science.
Anthony
too.
Michael Hall is Dexter, isn't it?
Okay, yeah, I always get those two names mixed up. But you know who I'm talking about. The blonde
I know
kid.
that you're talking about, yeah.
And Breakfast Club, he's the nerd.
He's in Weird Science too.
And he's,
Yeah.
Yeah, give me the keys.
He doesn't have his license yet, Lisa.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Got
right.
that. Joel Chet.
Chet, yeah.
Turn him into that.
Chet was, he died a couple years ago, didn't he? I mean,
I think so.
The actor Bill Pullman, or is it Pullman?
I think so.
Something like that. He was also the Titanic explorer at the beginning and the end of the movie Titanic. So in the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes, and then there's about 3 hours in between.
That's right.
He was the
And he was in Twister.
Twister, the original
yeah.
Twister.
Yeah.
Are you going to go see the new Twisters?
I don't know. Probably won't go see it.
When was the last time you were in a movie theater? Don't ask me because I'll have the same reaction.
I don't remember. I can't remember what movie. We did go. My wife and I, when I think the kids were a little younger. Like it may have been like 10 years
So
ago.
you're talking 10 years.
No.
Oh.
I'm saying, but we won. This is legit. We won 4 tickets to the movies for a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like a radio thing or
I can't remember how we won. I think she did a Facebook thing
that go
and we got selected. We went like
to
4.
a specific theater or
Yeah,
to a
to
specific
the
company?
the one in Gallipolis,
Spring Valley Cinema.
I think it's still called that.
Yeah.
We went like 4 times. So it was like, well,
That's why they chose you.
yeah.
We know this guy.
But
never
really,
goes to the movie.
actually, honestly, they could do that more because they make their money off their concession.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
$12 popcorn
For
and
sure.
Stuff like
Goodness.
that. Man, I can't remember what movie.
I can't tell you. I
I have a great story about that. I may
Going
have
to the
told it
movie theater?
before. Yeah, when Chastity and I were dating, I am a classic horror fanatic.
horror.
I guess. There's another story that came up. I'll tell you that off air. Yeah, classic horror fanatic. I love Jason Voorhees
Scary movies.
and Friday the 13th. Yeah, I don't know if they're really
Slasher
scary.
movie. They really aren't that scary.
Yeah, I just like, and I like monsters.
There you go.
But so they came out with Jason versus Freddy.
Yeah, but that was more modern, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was. But I wanted to see it. Like,
Okay.
oh man, Jason versus these are my
Yeah, and these are
two
you have
horror
kids.
icons.
You're an adult with children, and you.
I don't.
and-
No. This is when me and Chastity and I were dating.
Oh, that's how old that movie is.
Yeah,
Jason
it's been
versus
a while.
Freddy. Okay.
And Chastity comes to me on my birthday and is like, "Hey, want to go to the movies?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay, we're gonna go with our friends and see this movie, a movie that was not Freddy versus Jason."
I'm recalling this story. I think you've told me this before.
And I'm upset about it,
Yeah.
like a child temper tantrum touch.
Yeah, you thought you were going to go see The English Patient.
I'm
or
like,
something.
why in the
She told-
world
Why-
would you do this
Why
to
would
me? You know, I don't like going to the movies, but if I go, why wouldn't I want to see the movie that? And I was upset, and then we ended up.
She pulled the old switcheroo.
She switched it on me, and we went to Freddy versus Jason. So
And
that's
then
pretty good
she
deal.
had you hooked. You proposed.
I was hooked before
You were later
then.
married. There you go.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Yeah, I was hooked before them.
Yeah.
My dad had heart surgery when, we were in college, and they wheeled him down the hallway. And so I was like, what, 21, I think, maybe 20. They wheeled him down the hallway, and I walked down the hall and looked out this window. I was just standing there looking out the window, and Chastity came up behind me and wrapped her arms around me, gave me a hug, and that's when I knew that the decision was made there.
There you go.
Yeah. It's
funny how those kinds of things bring people together.
That's true.
They solidify a relationship.
Yeah.
I have a very similar story, but ours happened a lot earlier in our dating relationship. But yeah, it's very, very, very much. It's mortar.
Yeah.
Trial is like mortar, and it's funny because we just started the book of James at our church.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I preached on having joy in all things. Right. And of course the context there is you're going to face trials, but how do you find joy? People don't understand that. Like people who don't have faith really don't understand the difference between joy and happiness, I think, from a biblical standpoint. And one of the blessings that's able to, that allows you to find joy in trial is knowing that God will use it. He'll use it for the benefit of either you or somebody else. That's a promise, and it's something that if you can really grasp a hold of that, you were going through a trial and you got a wife out of it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Right. That's, but you have to kind of live your life a little bit like Soren Kierkegaard, the theologian, who says it's hard to define life moving forward. We don't know what the heck's going on. That's why we got to keep walking forward step by step, and then later we look backward, and it's easier to define life looking backwards.
That's
one of my
stuff.
favorite philosophical statements, and it's one of the reasons I've read his stuff. I don't read a lot of philosophy. Do you read much philosophy? Socrates and Aristotle and Plato and all that.
Other than just little quotes that you run into.
Yeah, they're easy to grasp, especially as coaches. I'm sure we use them without even realizing who made the statement. But
and you probably read a lot of them when the books that we do read. They pull from those things.
Yeah, for sure.
I tell you, this
guy right here. I brought a book in with me today.
What you got there? Oh,
yeah. Not only do we quote him, this great coach and philosopher, but we're pulling from the wisdom that he's gained from others.
Absolutely.
This is called the Essential Wooden. So there's a lot of, it's like quotes from Wooden, and then people talking about playing for him or being influenced by him or something. And there are a lot of Wooden quotes that actually go to some of these people, Marcus Aurelius, or some of these people that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I read a good quote about Wooden the other day that gave me a lot of hope. That is, he didn't win a national championship until his 16th season.
There you go.
You can have bad seasons as a coach. What I was going to say is, as I get older, the concept of joy becomes much more important, because I think life gets harder. It becomes harder to find those moments of happiness. What we as human beings believe are happiness, things that make us happy. Like there's a lot of things that for over the past couple of years that I used to do that I know that it used to keep my attention longer, and I got more out of it than I do now.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like a bummer, you know what I mean? But that's one way. I believe, I know,
right?
But that God is calling us to Him, calling us out of the world, and closer to Him, because nothing that we have here is going to sustain us.
And if we don't know that yet, look around our world right now.
Yeah,
one of the reasons why I said, man, we gotta. I was going to say here early on in our podcast today, we got to get more consistent here and start cranking these things out, because people need different things to listen to and watch from what we're being fed.
Oh yeah, you're right.
From our country right now, and our and our world around us, contextually. I mean, culturally and politically, and it is I'm finding myself, and I've been away from social media quite a bit, and away from especially Twitter, X, whatever. And man, I tell you what, the last couple days have sucked me in, like I have not been sucked in the last 3 or 4 years, or since COVID. So what year is this? In 4 years, really?
Yeah, I've done the same. Like from a political perspective, I've I would say done a really good job of staying away from. I try to stay informed.
Exactly,
but
I'm
not
with you there. But there's a difference
engrossed.
between being informed and then going down that little rabbit hole of, like when you open up your, like, for X users, Twitter users, I still have to this day have a hard time calling it X because it sounds so weird. but when you open it up, you've got two sides. You've got people that you're following, and then there's this other side that's called For You.
Yeah.
And it seems like it always wants to default to the For You. It's like it's an algorithm. It's assuming that you're going to want to read this. And all it is it's like hot take after hot take, and it catches your attention. You're like, whoa, seriously? That's really what just happened? Or every tweet on that side is breaking. You notice that? Like, is there any news anymore that isn't breaking? Like, everything is breaking or just in. And it's usually not. It's usually when it's a hot take, and you read it, and you're like, man, that's incredible. And I want to look at this more. So we'll look at the comments. What do people say? And you find out 15 minutes later, well, that really wasn't true. I mean, it wasn't complete. There was some truth to it, but it wasn't fully true.
Yeah.
And it really isn't that big of a deal.
See it a lot with sports headlines now.
Yep.
Quarterback gets cut. Browns quarterback gets cut, and it's like the 6th-string guy that they just signed or something like that. But that's the sensationalism that, and I don't it's not all the media's fault. They have to do that. They feel they have to do that to stay in business, because that's what we that's what we buy. That's what
you gotta hook people with something catchy like that, and you got to do it first. Mm-hmm. Those are the two things that you really have to. I don't know that that's being taught, right? But I feel like that's what we observe,
some way, right?
And these kinds of things.
Yeah, we'll try to get be a little bit more consistent.
So season 10.
This is season 10. Are we
We're
going?
Getting ready to start season 10.
Okay, all right.
We have to come up with different theme music and all that. What should we do? Like, we should do something different with season 10 that I mean, I know we do something a little bit different every time we come in here because it's just a conversation, and you just never kind of know where we end up. And sometimes we talk about the same things over again. But like today, I mean, we're going to talk about something from a broader scope, but you also had a very specific question asked of you, right? You guys should talk about this on your podcast. Mm-hmm. And so even though, if we talked about just that one little thing, it might only be a 5-minute long podcast because we could probably figure that out in 5 minutes, but it also brings to mind a bigger concept or a bigger idea.
Sure.
When it comes to coaching, sports. So we can talk about that today. But that got me thinking too, the fact that you said, hey, this person asked, somebody has asked us to talk about this thing. Why don't we what if we had a listener generated topics? Like what if we really pushed for listener interaction? And the way that you can interact as a listener or viewer, however you choose to partake of our podcast, the way that you can interact is by giving us the things that you want to hear us talk about.
Yeah,
things that.
Now, I'd love that. I feel like we've had a little bit of that in the past, and
it always works out pretty great, I think. And sometimes we
yeah.
tell people this is from a listener, and sometimes we just come in and we talk about it, and and we don't. In fact, a lot of our ideas have come from that. But I think if we're intentional about it, we might get some pretty good. Because sometimes it's hard for you and I think, to come up with what we're going to talk about. And then all of a sudden we come in and it just happens. And I mean, I know you like flying by the seat of your pants, but I like to plan things down to a T.
Right.
He's a changed man.
That is
You can veer for a minute off of that itinerary that practice.
I can a little bit, but it still makes me uneasy. So I was always able to do that. I just get distracted.
But you learn, yeah. Well, speaking of practice plan, I think that could help us jump right into our topic, don't you think?
Sure. Yeah.
So
We're talking about fundamentals, right?
yeah. So in sports, and in particular, it's going to be a lot of baseball today because it's our favorite. It's the best sport, so we're going to talk
Greatest
about
in
it.
the world.
Yeah, it's the greatest sport in the world.
Undisputed
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah. Yeah. And you want to dispute that? If you want to tell us to talk about something else, you can do that, and we can also say no. No. I mean, every illustration in this book right here that I just showed us is a basketball illustration.
Yeah.
But this is one of my favorite coaches that I've ever read.
Love John.
Right? Yeah.
And speaking of fundamentals, the small things that matter. One of the best stories one of my favorite stories of John Wooden is the way that he coached his players on the importance of tying their shoes.
Yep.
Everything starts with your feet.
Yep.
If you don't have good habits and aren't good at tying your shoes in a way that supports your feet, it's going to impact the way that you play the game.
Small things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. He I don't know how many years he did it, but he started, I think his first team meeting and first team
showing them how to tie their shoes
was everybody talked about the old shoes and socks illustration. And he would get a freshman, a rookie, to come over and kind of show him how to put his socks on properly, how to tie the shoes nice and tight. And if you don't do that, it's going to create a wrinkle. And as you go up and down the floor, that wrinkle is going to create a blister. And if you get a blister, you're not going to be able to run, which means I'm going to have to take you out of the game. And if I need you in the game, but you can't play because you're injured, then that means we might lose the game. And if we lose the game, my job rides on it because our university is paying me to win games, and I could lose my job. You see how much bigger it gets just from putting on your sock properly, right?
And the focus of the conversation is that simple fact that John Wooden, one of the greatest basketball coaches, arguably one of the greatest coaches ever in any sport, had his players practice. He demonstrated the act of tying their shoes, putting on their socks, putting on their shoes, and tying their shoes.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of things in sports and in a game of baseball that are important to do.
That you take for granted.
Sure.
Otherwise, you might otherwise take for granted unless you're intentional about this is what we're going to prepare for.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things, when we started this years ago, talking about our player development program and the pros and the cons of rec league and rec league and travel ball is one of the drawbacks of travel ball is the, lack of focus at times, but also the inability at times because you're playing so many games to have the practices where you work on these fundamentals. And they, when you don't work on them, it may not pop up 5 times in a season, but it could pop up one time in the worst situation, the worst time.
Well, you need to be able to execute. You better. You better be able to. Yeah.
Yeah.
You better be prepared.
Sure.
And even inside of fundamentals, there's even it's multi-layered, I think, because inside of fundamentals and teaching and coaching fundamentals, you have the difference between individual skills, individual instruction, fundamentals that as an individual you need to work on, or team fundamentals, right? And because there are things that you really can only do as a team, but of course, as a team, if you're individual players who are executing this team fundamental, and I'll get to an example of a team fundamental, but if they're not very good, if they're not in, like if they can't throw and catch well, like if it's a baseball game and your kids have a hard time, let's say, making a transfer, right? They can throw it, they can catch it, but it takes them a long time because they don't move their feet, and so they'll catch it here, and then they'll transfer it here and make a real long throw. And if you need a relay from the outfield and a middle infielder or a third baseman or first baseman, whoever's making that relay, if you need it to be quick, then you probably need to practice that transfer, right? You probably need to practice, in some way find drills that, or ways to help your players get better at getting in position to make that transfer quicker. Because one, it's good to have a strong arm. Yes, it's good to be able to catch it. If you don't catch it, you're not going to make the relay. But that little transfer as well. Well, inside of that individual skill, throw, catch, throw, transfer, catch, transfer, and throw, you have, I talked about relays, right? You have getting in position. Yeah, the outfielder knowing what to listen for, the infielders knowing how to communicate, what to communicate, the people that are at the bases, the infielders that can see the whole field, to see the play develop, knowing how to communicate, where we're going to throw the baseball. If you need to adjust for some reason, maybe you were going to, maybe you're going to relay to third base, but now you've got to adjust. Who do we throw to now, and where is that person located? So we're talking about cuts and relays in the game of baseball. That's a team fundamental. Like, you can't go out in the yard. You and I talked a couple weeks ago about playing step ball, right? And that's something that wall ball, step ball, that gets you better at field, catching, hitting a target, fielding, whatever, having fun. That's an individual thing. You can practice that.
Work on the transfer, work on catching the ball, work on throwing it, visualizing it maybe, but you're not in that team setting.
Yeah, you need your team to practice the fundamental of relays and cuts and relays. And so I think that brings up a question for coaches as well, that you have to answer as a coach. How much time do you spend in your practice on individual stuff versus team stuff? Yep. And I think, this cuts and relays thing is actually it might be boring for, a portion of our audience who doesn't care about baseball or softball. But
it could be anything. You could represent anything.
Sure, it can represent anything, but let's talk about it pretty specifically here, because that's a pretty valuable piece of the game of baseball. And I know it's probably a little different for softball. I watch enough softball on TV to know that there's a lot of similarities in those relays. They may be using a different person. It may be a little simpler in terms of you probably don't have a double cut situation as much in the game of softball.
Pitcher's the cut a lot of times,
because the backstop is really close, and you don't have a ton of a need for a backup there. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on the philosophy. It'd be good to hear from a softball coach, because I really don't know. But from a baseball perspective, even inside of that, there might be different perspectives.
Sure.
For who cuts.
That's actually what brought the conversation on. Yeah, okay, for sure. Cool. Because
let's stay right in it for a little bit. We're 28 minutes into the podcast. And
there you go. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, and we got a little timer right there on the soundboard too, so you can see that.
So based on our 5 years ago, we said we were going to keep these at 30 minutes,
and we're just now getting into our topic 30 minutes into it.
Shoot. Well, there's a baseball book written out there by a man named Ron Polk.
Everybody should buy it.
Yeah.
Everybody should buy every baseball coach should buy it.
Yep.
Invest in that. You can get a digital version of it too.
I've been buying digital books, and with audio.
Do you have the digital version of that?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I think I might get it.
Yeah. Good point. Right. Just to revisit it. It's something you've already read, but
that book stays under my bed.
Yeah,
if I right now go to my house, I could go right to where that book is, because where I sleep, it's right here under the bed. The Ron Polk baseball playbook.
When do you ever read it? When you're reading all these other books,
it's a reference. It's like an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Right. It's Wikipedia for baseball. It's a reference. If you're like, man, I wonder if there's. I wonder how how these, Mississippi State, wonder how Coach Polk's, team did this. You'll find it in there. If you think of one team fundamental thing or something and you want to know what to do, you'll find it in that book.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're talking about cuts and relays. In that book, you'll find
they're pretty complex in that book. You'll find 80 pages or so of cuts and relay diagrams.
Pictures of a baseball field, and you have your 9 defensive players, and those, with each diagram, you'll have a situation, runner, no runner on. When no runner on and the ball's hit the left field, where does the ball go? Who's the cut? So on and so forth.
Yep.
Runner on first. Balls hit the right center. What does the right fielder do? What does the center fielder do? What does the third baseman do? What does the catcher do? What does the pitcher do?
I'm just smiling because it's like there are so many. This just illustrates how complex the game of baseball is.
Sure.
And how you have to be ready to react and be able. You have to know how to think, not just what to think.
Yeah, and it's really difficult because, like I mentioned before, it's very easy to downplay the significance of these team skills, right? Because they don't happen very often.
Right.
Like they're a double cut. You may double cut 3 or 4 times a season, right?
And it's going to be different depending on where the base runner is sometimes, right?
True.
If there's no base runner on, you're double cutting to third. If there's a base runner on first, now we're double cutting to home.
Right.
Maybe third, right? Depending on where what the catcher says,
Yeah. So
there's so many variables. I mean, you said runner on first, ball hit to left field. Well, what if it's hit to right? What if it's hit to center? What if it's hit to the gap? What if it's hit to the line, down the right field line, left field line?
Yep. And that's why we've
as a player, you gotta know. You gotta know where I'm going on every single one of those scenarios.
Well, and I think coaching that and teaching that is one of the things that could help younger kids not think the game's so boring. Because you really don't have time not to think.
Yep.
I know we've talked about it before. You were big on the in between moments. When as the pitcher is receiving the ball and we're getting ready to get to the next pitch. That right fielder's got to be thinking, okay, here's the situation, and this is what I'm going to do here. This is what I'm going to do there. This is what I'm going to do. And in some cases, it's okay. Here's the situation. This is what I'm going to do. If this happens, if that's the. And here's what he's going to do if this happens, this happens. So really, baseball is a smart person's game.
Oh, it is, and there's so much there's so many aspects to it, like this, like what we're talking about now, that if we could get kids to understand that, there is a lot of in between time where you can have fun, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of chirping that you can do, and a lot of little chants, things like that, and those are all part of the game too. And I love those parts of the game, but if I think sometimes we spend more time thinking about what our next cheer is going to be, or what our next celebration is going to be at second base when I hit a double, as opposed to thinking through the game as it's being played, because there's no better way to I mean, you can simulate those situations in practice. You can simulate them by having your players react to batting practice, live. There are ways to do it in practice, but sometimes the best way to practice these, to understand these team concepts, is to watch them unfold before you as you're in the dugout, and then make a note. Okay, did all of our guys go where they're supposed to go? Yeah. There have been times in our games when, bases were loaded, somebody hits a ball down the line, we give up 3 runs, and every player was, and all we simply did was got to the ball quick. We got it to the relay guy. We had a double cut situation. The shortstop was going to get short hopped on it, and so the guy behind him said, through, and he relayed it into the third baseman, who was yelling, cut three, and we got it there. It wasn't in time. Everybody's safe. We're down 3 runs, but I'm like, you know what? Everybody was where they're supposed to be. Pitcher was backing that throw up. Catcher was communicating. Something went right there, you know, and that's a success inside of a failure,
a process.
Inside of it, I mean,
that's the game.
It is.
You can do everything right and still not be successful. You know what I mean?
Without,
that's why you can't focus only on the results.
Right.
You got to focus on the approach.
And those are the things that I like to point out in our dugout. Right. Like, that sucks. We just gave up a 3-run double, but look at what all went well. Look at what all went right.
Yeah,
Because
or-
we can't defend. I mean, the kid, you got to tip your hat, right? Kid got a hold of one, right? Hit one down the line. Tip your hat. But it could have been worse.
Sure.
Right?
Or when things go right and you didn't do it right.
You
Those-
remind them,
those are
yeah.
good.
sometimes we can't.
We got
celebrate
lucky
this.
there, but if this would have happened,
Yeah.
we would have been in bad shape. Yeah,
Yeah.
the pitcher doesn't do his job and get behind, back up, and
And he just happens to be like the outfielder throws it to nobody, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't throw it to a base. He just throws it in the middle of the field, and the pitcher's not backing anybody up, and he's like happens to be there to catch it, and you pick somebody off
yeah,
because
and
he,
as the offensive team is just
they're just
angry
going,
because
man, yeah. If he's actually backing that throw up, that ball would have rolled into the dugout.
yeah, things like that happen. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah, 80 diagrams of all these.
there's
scenarios.
a lot of diagrams.
You could practice this for a week straight, and it would not be enough to So
And I'll tell you what I've done with those, because I have taken some of those diagrams and made them part of my playbook as well, our
Yeah.
playbook, and haven't taken all of them because I think it's overwhelming, right?
Yeah,
it's
like
overwhelming.
a pop fly foul over to third base. This
right?
guy goes here.
But
Yeah.
but I love the fact that Coach Polk included all that, because
Absolutely.
it shows you. And this is a book that's this thick, right? Because half of it are these diagrams in the back, and it illustrates these things will happen in the game of baseball. Perhaps in one game, but usually over the course of the 50 or the 27 or the 162 that you play, you're going to see these things happen for sure, and we got to be prepared for them. And so I took the most common ones, right? The ones that we should know how to do instinctively, and those are the ones. It might be 10 or so in our book.
Yeah. So that's how the conversation came up, because in this particular question that was brought to me, I think the scenario is runner on second base and ground ball hit to left field. Ball that drops.
Be more specific. Is it down the left field
Well,
line? Is
that's-
it in the 5.5?
See, and that's the conversation, right?
Because left field could be to the left, to the left of the shortstop. It's
Right.
a shot that left fielder goes and gets toward the gap. It could be in the 5.5, and the third baseman and the shortstop are both going for it, or it could be down the line. And it takes the third baseman that way toward the bag, but it's a hot shot by him, and so it's easier for him to get back and make that relay.
Well, that's a mouthful there. Exactly.
It is.
And that's
so where's the ball going?
That's
Yeah.
the struggle, right? That's
Yeah.
the challenge. And I think when if you have a
That's 3 different sheets in Coach Polk's book.
yeah, it is.
It really is.
But
yeah.
if you have a cut and relay discussion with someone in general, they're going to say if it's hit to the left side with a runner on second, because you're cutting two bases ahead.
Right.
The third baseman,
the throw's going to the plate.
throw's going to the plate. Third baseman is your cut man.
Shortstop goes and covers the bag.
Shortstop covers the
Second
bag.
base is covering the second base bag.
Right.
Everybody's going somewhere. Pitcher's backing up the plate.
First base is hanging out in case you need to throw behind the
Yeah,
runner on
a little
first.
back pick.
Yeah, and then right field's going over and backing up the
Backing
cut
that
to
throw,
second.
backing up the potential throw to second or first. Center field's probably going toward the play as well.
Yeah, he's
everybody's
backing up
going
left
somewhere.
field.
Right,
Everyone's going somewhere.
A ball, a base, or a backup position.
Or-
one of the 3 Bs.
or-
if you don't go to any of those, you find yourself on the bench.
That's right.
That's the 4th B.
4B, the 4B system. But the third baseman is not always the cut,
I agree.
and so one of the things that I've done with teams, and my first year as a varsity coach, I had a solid team. I had 10 or 11 just baseball players. You know what I mean when I say baseball
And
players.
your corners were outstanding athletes.
Sure were.
First and third.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just, these guys had played together. They knew the game. They had a great IQ, and they knew how to execute things. And so when I was introducing my, the way that my cut system, the way that I like to do things, which is by and large exactly the way that Ron Polk, Coach Polk likes to do. But there's some differences. There was times when they would say, well, we did this last year.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, all right, listen, as long as you execute it, right? And so my philosophy has been, if we can execute it, 95% of the time, 90% of the time, and it come out in our favor, then I'm fine with that, regardless of, what the situation is. If you're comfortable, if I have a team that says, oh, we'd rather do it this way, like on a double cut down the right field line, some people have the first baseman go out and be a cut, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. If that's, if you're
Right.
comfortable with that, do it. I don't, to me, it's about the execution. To me, it's about no hesitation, knowing exactly what you're going to do when the situation arises and doing it, and almost without thought.
And all 9 guys have to know.
And all 9 guys
have
need
to
to
know
be on
who's
the
going
same.
where.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So if there's any confusion about that, that's when I take over. And one of the things that I've incorporated over the last couple seasons has been my first baseman cuts everything to the plate.
Okay.
So on that ball to left field,
You're not the only coach that does that.
I wouldn't think. I've never invented anything.
There's a
when it
lot
came to baseball.
You're right. But but that's a lot of people use the third baseman to cut that throw off that you're talking about that goes to left field, right? We use ours sometimes. Depends on where the ball goes, right? And what it depends on what the ball makes the third baseman do. Is the kind of the way that I put it, right?
Yep.
If the ball takes the third baseman away from toward the outfield, then he doesn't have time, in my opinion, to get back, because your relay guy should be closer than the pitcher at that point, about 45, 50 feet from the plate, and and so he's got to get from now almost the deep hole to that place there. And like you said, it's easier for the first baseman to go ahead and go there.
Right.
Anyway. Yeah.
And then, so you have the scenario too of, okay, first base, the, general discussion, first base is a cut for center field and right field to the plate. Third base is a cut for
That's
left
pretty
field.
common, I would say. I'd say probably 95% of people do that.
Yeah. Well, what if the ball's hit to left center and left center field strong? And the center fielder is moving over a little bit towards left field, but still fields that ball. In my mind, now you have a decision to be made, which involves communication. Definitely something you can do. And if you practice that, then you know what to do.
Yeah.
But for me to remove that, that communication, that moment of uncertainty, I want my first baseman coming over there.
That's smart. Your kids then know if we have a runner in scoring position on a routine base hit to the outfield, it's always going to be our first baseman.
Right. And the reason I
relay.
say that is because the only thing the first baseman is going to do in that scenario otherwise is hang around first base for that,
in case
for
of a
that
back
pick.
Yeah. Or back somewhere, back up a throw
Or back
to a different base.
something up,
yeah,
right?
I mean, but you're right.
To me, your right fielder's coming in anyway.
Oh yeah, the right fielder's then covering first base.
So
in that scenario.
he's covering first,
Yeah.
or he's doing that backup job, So
I'll tell you what, you want to see a good youth ball team, go watch a youth ball team where their outfielders actually cover bases like that.
yeah,
Right? I mean, that's a well-coached team.
Yeah.
Your outfielders coming in to cover. Whenever I tell you, it just does a heart good. It makes you feel good when you see. I think we had in the district tournament, we had a rundown somewhere. And it was between first and second, I believe. And it was so awesome because, boom, our left fielder, Lance, and he's our fastest guy on our team too. He sprinted in to cover third base. I mean, and it's just like that's by now we ought to know to do that, right? And the only way you're going to know is if you practice and you're prepared for it.
Work on it. Yep.
And but no, that's I mean, you bring up a good point. Because if another coach who is good, successful coach, very well respected, says we want our third baseman making that cut to left field, you could also say, okay,
yes,
yeah, there's more than one way,
and that's
more
what
than
I
one
told.
Right way to do a lot of things in the game of baseball. I think you got to find what works for you and your team that year.
Yeah,
the personnel that you have right now.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's what I told. I said if my junior high coach teaches my junior high kids that the third baseman is the cut to left field, it's fine. We'll make that work.
Yeah.
This is just why I do it in this situation, or why I've done it.
I think one of the hardest things and maybe one of the reasons why that transition sometimes is difficult from youth ball to higher levels like high school ball, and then the junior high in between years, is because when you're younger, you send the cutoff man out right? To get like your cutoff men when they're younger are often going backwards to make the cut to make the relay, or they're staying, closer to the outfielder per se, because that outfielder's arm isn't as strong and you have to make that relay. But as you get older and your outfielders are more athletic, this should be the most athletic kids on your team with the fastest, best arms. And so what happens is you don't need a relay unless you do.
You don't need to cut the throw in half.
Yeah, you don't need to cut the throw in half. Usually the reason why that cutoff man is there is to cut it, to relay it to a different base.
Yep.
You want your outfielders making the throw low and hard to the base, and if for some reason you can't get that out, like let's say you have a runner on first base and there's a ball hit to right field and that runner's trying to make it to third, and so your shortstop is making the relay. He's not making that relay out by second base. He's making that relay about 15 feet in front of the third baseman, right? You're there laughing.
I'm laughing
because you probably argued with somebody about this recently. But I mean, but he's not going to relay it to third from there, right? Why would you relay it to third that close to the bag?
Right.
The whole point of him being there is to cut it in case there is no play at third, but we have a runner trying to advance to second. Now you cut two, and you got that runner at second base, or you just cut it and hold it. But that's the whole. I mean, that becomes so the whole philosophy. So this is another aspect of baseball. It's so awesome is when the kids are younger and they're not as strong. Your philosophy is one thing for cuts and relays.
Doesn't have to be.
Maybe doesn't have
to be.
But I understand why they would do that,
Sure.
right? But then as they get older and stronger, now they have to learn a whole different reason or a whole different purpose for this team fundamental of cuts and relays.
Did you throw anything this season?
Say what?
Did you throw anything this season in the dugout?
Oh man, don't put me in the spotlight like that. I keep a chart. I have a notebook that I wish I knew. I wish I had it with me because I would do an endorsement for a little. I mean, it's made of something like this. Like it's a binder that I was able to put all of our spray charts in and things like that. And I would keep that spray chart for our game, and then whatever we had on the hitters from other games they'd played were on that chart as well. So I could then communicate to the proper people, and then our pitcher and catcher could come in and look at it between innings. That particular notebook, there were times when I would turn around because of people usually not being in the proper place and something like that happening, and I would slam it on the bench like that, and it got a little bent up, but it held up pretty well.
I'll say this:
I did. I got angry a few times.
I mean, I argued with a umpire at the Shipyard
recently,
a 13U tournament. Not really argued with him, but
on your vacation
we talked back and forth. We won a game this year. Primarily because, well, not primarily, but there was a play at the plate late in the game, and the throw was high, and it came in above the cut and the catcher.
Yeah.
And we were able to score, and the coach was upset because it was obvious they worked on that quite a bit.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Was that me? So that was the Megs game that happened in, at your place.
Yep.
Because I'm seeing.
No, that wasn't.
I'm seeing the play because I know exactly who it was.
Kid's out. Huh? The kid's out at the plate.
Yeah, I do remember that. So it was at Megs, wasn't it?
Because that's all I'm thinking. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah. And well, you know what? Here's the thing though. Yeah, I was mad in the moment because it could have been a difference maker in the game, but we used that. So you want to know what we did after that? How we used that? I mean, those kinds of things. Now, not right after the game. Right, I don't like.
I know
we don't do a whole lot of team meetings after the game.
Neither do we.
We'll just gather in front of the dugout and say, hey, if it's an away game, it's usually like, and we lost, it'd be like, hey, we're going to make sure we clean the dugout up, and then we'll get a break before we leave. And then but the next day, the whole reason why we carry that little journal with us, and the whole reason we make notes during a game, is because that's a great teaching point. It's a reminder. And as we show up the next day, the emotion's gone. That kid's not, because he felt terrible as soon as it left he wanted to throw it there in the air and show that he could do it. Well, he threw it there in the air all right. He hit the daggone backstop.
Oh, he had more. He had more than enough.
He airballed it. And there's and so I probably did say this I probably looked at our kids in the dugout and say it a few times. That is you want to know why we say play the long hop? You want to know why we say low and hard? That's why. Because it gives us a chance. It gives us a chance, right? I was mad, right?
Yeah.
You got to give yourself a chance. You at least have a chance if the ball is if the throw is off.
I'm not laughing because you're mad. I'm laughing because of the scenario matches what we're talking about.
It is. It's exactly. I mean, that's why you throw it low and hard. And so, the next day, I was able to say what happened yesterday in the game.
Yep.
That is a direct. It correlates directly. It's a direct relation to things that we practice and things that we preach. I mean, when I say preach, this is something we preach, right? You have to do this.
Yeah.
And buddy, I tell you what, from that game forward, that particular player, but really all of our outfielders got the point, right? And even our infielders, like that ball that you go play deep in the hole as a shortstop, don't try to throw it in the air to the first baseman. You're going to airmail it because you're throwing off your back foot. Throw it low and hard, and if it one hops, that's fantastic. First baseman can handle a one hop. But those are the things that so we practice the long hop. Like where is a long hop? I mean, what is in order for your guy at the bag to get a long hop? Where do I have to do it? Well, let's practice it over and over and over again. And by gosh, halfway through it was early in the season probably, or halfway through when we played that game.
Yeah,
maybe
like that. Maybe
midway, third of the way,
second quarter.
But I don't remember having to deal with that again after that because we failed.
I'm glad it happened with us. So.
So that's funny because as you're describing that, I'm like, man, that exact same thing happened to us. I just don't remember what game it was. Well, that's why.
Yeah. That actually put us up 2 at the time, but it ended up being the
right
round because you guys scored but other things happen. Like,
oh yeah,
our center fielder saved the day in that game, on the run
in the last inning.
Yeah. Diving. After that happened,
right?
I mean, that ball gets by him. You guys are up 2. You know what I mean? So
maybe if it rolls that far in your grass out there.
Yeah, that's true. Well, keep it. The thatch is thick right now. So.
Shoot, we didn't think we were going to be able to talk about this particular topic.
I knew we could talk about it. I knew we could, but we switched it up. It's not just we've covered the thing. Do I do it a little different? Yeah, but the important part is being able to execute, knowing this is what we do in this situation, and being able to execute it without it slowing you down in some way. That's like the game's fast when you get to high school, and these are the things when we talk about the equalizer. As we get into high school, talent begins to level out, and it's the teams that are able to do these types of things that make the difference in ball games.
Right.
If you're good at these things, you have the advantage in a close game. Yeah, because you're not always. I mean, that's the game of baseball. You could be playing a team that is no good at it at all, and you execute everything perfectly, and then you still lose. But fundamentals, team fundamentals, important to work on. And we started the podcast with probably one of the
goes back to the heart of the podcast.
Yeah. Well, and I'm talking about today, this episode when we're talking about having joy. Because that's the Oklahoma softball team kind of coined that a few years ago.
That.
You got to have something.
Tennessee personifies it, baseball in a different way.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they personify.
Well, they do
the internal, the fun of the game, right? They may not have. I don't know if any of those guys have faith or not, but there's, I mean.
Well, I don't know.
But
they had a good year, didn't they?
They had a heck of a year.
But what if you don't? that's the moment.
Yeah. What if you don't? What if you don't win? Yeah.
Or what if you don't? What if you're for 13 in your last 13 at bats? Where's your mindset? And you're probably not having a lot of fun at that point. So what are you thinking?
And you're probably not happy.
You're not happy.
Yeah.
You're not happy. So you got to have something that you go to.
Yeah.
That you can cling to.
That's the reminder that's where you have to get your eyes off of the trees and see the forest, because that's you got to have instead of a micro lens. It's when things are going bad, it's easy to have a micro lens. I haven't been able to hit. I'm 0 for 13, or we haven't won a game in the last 13, and that's a micro lens, right? You step back and get a macro lens. But man, we're still playing baseball.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that line in The Natural, where he walks in and I think the coach is or one of the guys is shaving, and he goes, "What we get to do today? We get to play baseball." And it just kind of just takes away. Yeah, that's right. I'm still playing baseball. A bad day on the baseball field is better than a good day anywhere else.
Got a guy used to be the president of the Big Bend. I won't say his name because I don't know if he'd want me to, but really good guy. I was upset. I was coaching a son in Little League one year and upset about something, just in a bad mood. And he said, "Cheer up. You could be home mowing grass."
There you go.
That's true. That's a good point. Oh, I like to mow grass.
Yeah, I do too. I don't enjoy it more than baseball, but
no, that's true.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So do our kids.
Baseball.
Hey, cheer up. You could be taking a math test.
That's right.
You could be in Coach Kennedy's
that's a
class.
whole well, not anymore. Not anymore.
Yes. Now, did he retire?
I don't know. I didn't reach out to him. I need to find out, but I heard he did.
Find out too. Well,
you're not the only.
I love Mike. Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a long time, so I need to. But anyway, yeah. Shoot, I mean, this is pretty good stuff. I tell you, what's cool about you're recognizing that there's multiple ways of doing things that you can consider to be correct.
Sure.
Is there are guys in our program. Well, heck, our superintendent, Coach Detweiler, Mr. Detweiler. He contacts me. He texts me because he coaches a 10U team, right, or 11U, 12U team now, and says, "Hey, I want to know how you do this because I do it this way, but our kids are going to be playing for you, and so I'm going to start."
Oh, that's great.
And I tell you what. What's great about that is he probably thinks the way he does it is better, right? If there's something that we do differently, otherwise why would you why would you do it that way?
Yeah.
Right. You think you're doing it the better way. And so what I love about that is that takes a lot of humility and setting aside of ego to say, okay, this is the way you're going to do it when you get to high school. And so we're going to practice it this way. Now, I've always said too, tell me why you do it that way, because I might change as well. Right. I want to know the reason why. And usually, I mean, I'm not talking about big things. I can't even give you an example of one, but I know that's happened a couple times. And he'll probably text me after listening to this and give me those two examples. Right? Remember, these are the things that something to do with bunting, probably. But, hey, listen, we've been practice bunting every day.
I know. You had to shift, and
we've had to shift. Our team has had 0 home runs in the last 2 years. We had no home runs this year. We had no home runs last year. I mean, right? I mean, you don't have a power hitting team, but I had some speed.
Yes,
we had
you
some
did.
kids that had some good opportunities to make things happen. And so for you go back and listen to the first season of our podcast.
Hold up.
We did a lot of bunt bashing.
You still didn't do a lot of straight up sacrifice bunting where you just give up outs.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's where
we've always said that there's a place for bunting.
Yeah. Just our philosophy is
you hate bunting.
Yeah. Right. No, you bunt a well-placed bunt, you should be able to be safe.
And why? Well, one, if you do put it in the right spot, there's nothing you can do. But also, you put tremendous pressure on the defense.
Especially an amateur defense, a high school defense, a little league defense.
Because they don't spend the time.
They don't spend time practicing that team fundamental. Right.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Having that third baseman charge and getting
it happens fast. It's a play that has to happen faster, right? Because it's not a routine ground ball.
Well, that's the thing.
You have to sprint to the ground ball.
That defense they're all sped up, right? And it's new, and they're taken off guard, so they're not ready for it. And as a defensive coach, you got to get them to a spot where they're not surprised, they're not sped up, they don't have to think. Obviously, have to think, but it's more natural.
Sure.
The decision is more natural than it is. They're not froze. with
Right.
fear of not fielding the ball, fear of overthrowing it, fear of throwing it to the wrong place, whatever.
Yeah.
That's a good example of why.
Do you tell your catcher to make that call? Like, well, Jake's your catcher. Like, is Jake always making those bunt calls?
Our defensive calls, or like
in the middle of the play, like because your pitcher's charging forward. We want our pitcher fielding 90% of the bunts. I mean, everybody can possibly
anybody
get on him.
can. Yeah, he's gonna get there first.
But the pitcher's going away from the play, right? And the catcher's seeing it. I put a timer on our cat. I'm like, this is something you got to get good at, right? As soon as the ball comes off the bat, you have to know where it's going to go as soon as it comes off the bat, right? Based on where the ball's going, based on the trajectory, like where the direction it's going and how hard it's bunted. You need to instinctively make the call, okay? So that way, by the time he gets it, he can get his feet set and gets to it, his feet are set, and he knows where he's going. He doesn't have to make an adjustment, because it's when you have to make an adjustment. If he's thinking 1 and you say 2, now he's got to throw across his body, and he's going to pull that ball into center field, the left center field.
Well, and also
those kind. So we want our catchers to be quick on that.
Yeah, but one of the things that I do with that to make that easier is say, you're thinking first base. I mean, as a fielder, you're thinking get that out.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
The most sure out is going to be there.
Yes,
but
sometimes, guys,
if the play dictates, right. If it's a one hopper right back to you. And we have an easy double play opportunity here.
Or a squeeze play.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, those are really difficult outs to get at the plate. If it's done well, you can't get the out at the plate.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Well, that's true.
And
it's impossible.
If it's done well, you can't get the out at the plate.
You take a suicide squeeze. If it's done right, it's gonna work. And if it's got to be done right.
And therefore, if you're a pitcher, right, as a pitcher, I'm thinking, okay, if it's done right, we can't get this out to play. It's going to be a run. We're going. And so I've got to do my job right too. I got to force this guy to try to get a bunt on the ground from up here.
Oh, yeah.
Or something that's coming at his face, right, or at his chin.
Yep.
Yeah.
We actually, we did that. We did that by accident. I think I can't remember who.
Defensively, you got a kid to pop out on a
not pop out, but miss.
Oh yeah, that happened to us this year too.
Yeah,
but we got lucky because. I think what happened was the runner stopped the bunter missed. The runner stopped. He starts running back. The catcher makes a bad throw to third, and we score.
Oh, there you go.
So it was like one of those. Yeah, we didn't execute, but we succeeded, so we shouldn't feel good about it. And we actually did talk about that for the games.
Yeah. But again, you put pressure on the defense.
Right.
Sped them up.
Yeah. So I guess we failed to execute the bunt. It was a tough pitch. It still needed to be contacted, because if the catcher can catch it, you should be able to contact it, right?
Right.
And we failed that part of it, but the play itself forced the defense to make a failure too. So then it ended up working in our favor.
Yeah, and I would say that's the argument that most coaches that really, really, really love the bunt has, is that it's hard to get those outs because of the situation. You're catching them off guard and they're not ready for it, and it's just a hard play to make.
It is.
It's a lot different. You're practicing ground ball after ground ball after ground ball from shortstop, but you how much are you practicing those bunts?
This is why the structured PFP needs to happen every day. Oh, speaking of that, man, I can't forget this. I brought something in to show you today.
Okay.
And I'll even give it to you if you want it. Do you have a copy? Do you have something like this? So this is a checklist. Here, I'll show it that we use. All right. There's 74 things on here, because what we're talking about is the importance of practicing team fundamentals versus practicing individual fundamentals during practice. Not that you can't. Not that you shouldn't. This is team stuff.
Oh, really?
This is all, yes.
Dang.
That's why, right. Now, some things on here are, post-game jobs, post-practice jobs, things because what this is it's a checklist for preparing our team, right? And so everywhere where I might be writing up a practice plan, I have one of these charts, and I have it laminated, because what I'll do, I write up most of my practice plans from my desk here at work. And so what I'll do is I will take a highlighter and
got it.
or not a highlighter, one of those dry erase markers.
Oh, and then wipe it off.
Yeah, and I'll just check off. We've done this, and it won't I won't cross it out. I'll put a little notch there to say that we've practiced this at least once,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then we've practiced, we've gone over this once, and some things you only need to go over once.
Yeah, I'll
right?
take that and hang that right into the dugout.
And with the E on it right there, looks good. He's gonna get his scissors out. But no, it's
you made me a PFP schedule.
Yeah.
Do you remember what was on the top of it?
I put the Megs logo on there for you, didn't I?
Nah. Cleveland
The
Browns.
Cleveland Browns helmet. That's right. That's right. I just couldn't. So, but no, I mean, there's 74 things. I'll just read a few of them. Cutoffs and relays is number one, right? We have to make sure that we're practicing this every day, and we do, because we take IO every day, in and out before we leave. Holding runners, that's a pitcher, catcher, first base, second base, shortstop, second base. Third, we don't really hold anybody on third. I mean, who's stealing home, right? So,
well, there's a conversation.
yeah, it is.
I don't want to hold runners.
No, you're pulling your third baseman out of position way too much.
But there's teams that do.
But the third baseman's got to be ready. The thing is, third baseman's got to move, though, right? He's got to understand that the guy who's going to pick the kid off at third isn't the pitcher; it's going to be the catcher.
And again,
sometimes a pitcher might, right? I mean, if you got a hot dog base runner over there, and you got a communication system between your pitcher and third baseman.
Listen, our JV team picked off 2 or 3 in the same game.
Yeah,
and I'm up in the press box saying, we don't hold runners. Picked them off. Like, well, and it comes back to the execution. If you know what you're doing,
you're probably playing a dumb team though too. Right? I mean,
well, I don't. I mean, really,
you didn't say who you're playing.
Well, that's the other thing.
I mean,
right? Some coaches
get them.
Some coaches teach that real long lead on third base.
Yeah,
get down
true.
there.
Yeah.
That's
why we don't teach.
You only need to be down as far as
Yeah, there's no reason to get a long lead on that, especially if there's what if you're the only runner on base with less than 2 outs, and you get a 15-foot lead off of third base, a huge secondary lead,
and a hard ball set to
and the
third
ball
base.
is hit, or there's a hard
pitcher,
a low fly ball, like a hard line drive to left field or to center field to the outfield. It's deep enough for you to tag, but you got to run back to the bag to tag up.
That's true.
And now it's too late because he's already caught the ball.
Yep.
That actually happened to me in one of my first years as a head coach at Athens. Kid got too far off of third base, low liner to right field in the district tournament, right? And he didn't get back to the bag in time.
What'd you do next year?
I had to hold
season?
him. I had to hold him. Then from that point forward, every season after that, we practiced base running and we practiced going back to tag. Where your lead is on third base and going back to tag. You're not going to see our kids getting a huge lead off third base. Not our guys.
Yeah.
So
shouldn't.
But yeah. Infield positioning, outfield positioning, signs, communication, picks to first, second, third, first and third moves, rundowns, first and third defense, first and third plays at the plate, tags at the plate, tags at each base. How to make a tag. Just the other night, Major League game, right? Major League Baseball has replay now. Okay. And I know that this is another way. There's so many different ways to teach things, especially, I mean, like the catcher position has changed so much. And so much has changed. But, Brock and I were watching the Cardinals and whoever they were playing. I was over at his house and there was a play. It wasn't the Cardinals because it wasn't Arenado. Arenado wouldn't have made this mistake, but I don't know who it was. But the third, they had a runner, guy was trying to score from first on a ball hit to the right field or something like that. I threw the ball to third base, one hop, ball beats him by probably 2 steps. The guy goes in the slide, and so the third baseman takes the glove to the runner's leg, right? And or to his, I guess it's to his arms, because a lot of these guys slide head first now because they can do those swim moves. And I think that's the reason why some people now are teaching at the upper levels like that to go ahead and take the tag. Brock said they actually taught some of their infielders this because
to extend or to step away from the bag.
To take the tag, you have to get him before you can make that swim move. Basically, it's kind of the way he explained it.
Yeah.
And so, because if you just because what we teach is take the glove, right? Here's the bag, take the glove to the front of the bag, because that's where he's going, right? And if you got to move it, you got to move it. But it goes down. Umpire sees that. Glove was there, right? Most of the time he's out.
Sometimes
we don't have replay. So we don't have replay, right? Well, it looked, we were watching that in live speed, and it's like, dude, he got him. Why are they replaying that? Well, when you look at replay, he extended the glove. The guy, when he slid, arms went out, got the bag. And I
teach our players to step away from, if they have time, to step away from the bag towards the runner to
step out.
Yeah, to
If you have-
prevent, to basically to separate the runner from the bag. So
You got to be careful with that today.
Well, not if you have the
with
ball.
Obstruction calls.
But if you have the ball, you're fine.
Oh, yeah.
That's
yeah.
what I mean.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Instead of extending.
Yeah. Don't wait for him to come to you.
Go
if
get-
you've got
yeah.
the ball, yeah.
I don't know
I
about
see that.
extending.
Yeah, it's
There you go. College
I've
coaches
seen
are
it,
teaching
I've seen
it.
it too much though. Like extending, like a kid catches a ball and instead of taking the glove down,
With a
he
glove
takes
up.
it. He'll take it out to the runner, even if a guy's sliding in feet first, and all of a sudden the umpire will see him make the tag at the knee because he extended the glove out, and he's like, no, you got under it, right? Well, you make it so that he can't get under it.
I
Take it
could
to
see
edge
the
of
argument
bag.
though, because like, you know, you're putting it down in front of the bag. Like you've seen the play where a guy's still in second base and he pops up slide right in front of the glove
and then steps over you,
and then
Yeah.
steps
Oh,
around.
yeah, I mean,
so to extend there, you know,
right?
but
Yeah. So
I guess what you got to do is
the point
practice
is, whatever it is you decide to do,
practice
put it
it
on your sheet.
Yeah.
Practice it.
Yeah, for sure.
Teach your kids. This is how we do this, right? And so that's, I mean, a lot of that kind of stuff, you know, even that's a team thing, but it's an individual thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that for us, that's we call it individuals time at the beginning of practice, where
That's what I thought
hey,
you were gonna-
pitchers and third baseman work together, or catcher and third baseman work together, pitchers and middle infielders work together in this. And while you're working on pickoff moves, middle infielders, you're working on how you're putting the tag down, things like that. There's multiple things that you could be working on at the same time while working on individual skills. And so you just make a list. As a coach, sit down and make a list of these are the things we want our team to be prepared for. We feel like our team is going to be really prepared if we can check these things off and check them off multiple times throughout the season. So there you go.
good stuff.
Yep.
You think
Pass that over to you.
how many people have we lost at this point?
After an hour and 10 minutes of baseball talk, all right, we'll do it. We'll give them the old. There we go.
I do want to
The
point out that
outro
I'm not
music.
wearing a maroon shirt today.
So you've got a minute to take us out.
Right here.
Oh, you're not wearing maroon.
It's not maroon.
Is that the criticism that you always wear maroon, or you always wear?
You criticized me for that. Actually, I went back the other day.
I was relaying that from my buddy. Of mine.
I tell you what I did.
Tell Pat to get a new shirt.
Tell you what I did is I went back the other day and I listened to our podcast when you introduced me as the high school baseball coach
Yeah.
for Megs.
I think that might be the most listened to
No.
episode.
No way. But
It's in the top 5, buddy.
I listened
It is.
because I wanted to know, you know, you asked me things like, you know, what kind of coach do you want to be? What
Yeah.
do you want, what do the players want? What do you want the players to know? And I listened to it to make sure that I feel like I'm
Oh.
still aligned with that.
Yeah, because that's 3 years ago.
Yeah. And I feel like I
Shoot,
feel
you
like
did the
I
same
am.
thing with me. I should do that too.
Maybe you should.
I'm gonna go back and listen to that today.
Yeah.
That'd be a good thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. That,
And if I've changed for the better, that's great.
That's really
change is fine. We should all be looking to change something.
change is good for the better.
That's right.
Right. For the
So
better.
if we said something today that you didn't agree with, we're telling you, change because our way is better.
That's right. That's right. That's good talking to you, Coach.
Yep.
See everyone next week.